It is said that if you give a man a fish, he will eat for a day. But if you teach him how to fish, he will eat for a lifetime. Some would say that if you teach a man how to fish, he will sit in a boat and drink beer all day. Jesus said, "Your ancestors ate the manna in the wilderness and they died." He was talking about Jewish ancestors, the ones who followed Moses from Egypt to the Promised Land. And they did not die because they ate the manna, the bread that came down from heaven, but rather that the manna sustained them for a day, and they got more the next day, but they eventually grew old and died. In fact, they couldn't even put some in storage because it spoiled every night. They simply had to have faith that they would get more tomorrow. God provided, so there was never any scarcity. In my case, however, the provider is called Dillon's or Harder House or Hy-Vee. They have stored up a lot of food, and I have too. My family could eat well if a blizzard confined us at home for a month. Not that we could even conceive of a blizzard. As food prices skyrocket over the coming months, our focus will quickly shift from elections to food scarcity. Stock up now. Some people think that we have a bigger problem than the drought has caused. One of my relatives, for example, watches a certain preacher on TV and has purchased non-perishable food from this ministry to last for 5 years, which, if he started eating it today, would not run out until he was age 98 and a half. It is definitely survival food because mere survival is the point. It is the food that feeds for a day, something like manna. We will eat it but eventually die. Jesus offers us a different food, and it supplies a different economy and satisfies a different hunger. He has solved the problem of spiritual scarcity. Spiritual scarcity. How do you stock up for that? How is spiritual hunger satisfied? We try in so many ways, but it's all kind of like sitting in a boat and drinking beer all day. We might feel good for a while, but we don't end up with what we really need. Manna is the bread that fills and nourishes for the day. Jesus Christ is the bread that fills and nourishes for eternity. If the supply is inexhaustible and beyond measure, then the demand is irrelevant. Any quantity of need can be met. This is the spiritual economy that Jesus offers. Not manna for a day, even if it is from heaven, but his very self, right now, here, and for eternity. He foreshadowed the sacrament of Holy Communion in many ways. When Peter caught 2 boatloads of fish, or the feeding of the 5,000, or again the 4,000, or the many times before and after the resurrection that Jesus ate with his disciples and others. Food was even used to prove that he was not a ghost. With Jesus, there's always food around, symbolizing his abundance. For from his abundance he has given us grace upon grace, we hear early in John's Gospel. And he gives us his grace in the sacrament whenever we ask for it. Now we say that a sacrament is an outward and visible sign of an inward and spiritual reality. Bread and wine are the outward signs that Jesus taught us to use. He is the inward and spiritual reality, consumed and incorporated, becoming the stuff of our spiritual DNA, and also becoming his body in the world. It is not just our meal. He wants to end everybody's spiritual hunger. We have his real presence here, now, in this holy meal that is about to get underway. Though just a bit of bread and a sip of wine, he reliably feeds and nourishes us with his very self, saying, "I am the living bread that came down from heaven. Whoever eats of this bread will live forever." and the bread that I will give for the life of the world is my flesh. Let's start our journey to the table and bring others when we return. Amen.